Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Deb Coviello. I have to work on that name a little bit, but I think we got it. She is a management consultant, leadership coach. She also has a company which is entitled Illumination Partners. She has just completed a book for all of you who may be interested in reading it after listening to the podcast. It'll be coming out in August. And it is called The CEO's Compass, a guide to getting back on track. So she has done a tremendous amount of thinking about what goes into leadership, what it takes to be a CEO. She's one herself. And she has a podcast called The Drop-In CEO. So you have a background in quality, total quality. You have done a great deal. You're Lean Sigma certified at the black belt level. So Deb comes with a tremendous amount of experience and expertise working with companies within them and as a consultant. So Deb, tell us a little bit about your journey, what got you started, and what got you to where you are today.
So first of all, just Lois, thank you so much for the opportunity to engage with you and speak to your community, the Building My Legacy community. You know, the topic of leaving a legacy is so important because it's not necessarily what you do, but what people remember you for and how you impacted their lives. So to go to my story, while yes, I'm technically trained as an engineer, spending many years in manufacturing and honing my craft with certifications as a Six Sigma black belt that will help you troubleshoot problems, or a Lean black belt to be more efficient. And yes, that will get you so far. And I was able to move up over the years in various aspects of quality and operational excellence in manufacturing environments. But the real story, I think, begins with my last role when I became the head or vice president of operational excellence and later the head or vice president of quality for the #1 global flavors and fragrance company for North America, responsible for 8 plants. Talk about, oh my goodness, I achieved what I thought was going to be my legacy in terms of having an impact, because technically I'm a problem solver. I'm an active listener. We help preserve the brand and quality as well as the food safety, so we protect the people. But it was along that journey in the last 7 years where I started saying, okay, I'm not the smartest person in the room. There's a lot more smarter people than I am, but as a leader, what then becomes my role? And so I would say it's really in that last role, the 7 years I spent with the last company, that I really honed my skills and insights as a leader. And truly, what is my role? Not just to technically deliver a certain performance at the organizational level, but how can I elevate the people to unleash their potential, remove their barriers, help them to, be more confident. And that really is my legacy within the corporate world. I always say, and I coined the phrase, people are the greatest tool in your toolbox. And that comes with me as I then jumped over to the other side to form my own business, because I felt I could continue to provide service to the medium-sized manufacturer, the medium-sized CEO who also is going through a significant change. My insights in partnership with them solve the business issue, but the key element of the Drop-In CEO brand is elevating the people along the way. And that's how I leave a lasting impact. And that's also on my website, how I close.
You know, Deb, right now, what we're seeing is a tremendous talent shift. We're being told by people who are in the workforce that depends on who you read, anywhere from 41 to 71% will look for a new job when things stabilize. That, even if it's at the lower end, 40%, that's a tremendous turnover, and that's scary. because what will be the impact on business? So what have you found in terms of people and working with people and helping corporations to really discover that talent that they have within their own walls?
I so appreciate you raising that question. It's something that I do discuss in the book. It's really paying respect to the human. Much of what I talk about is human-centric leadership, and organizations that truly, first of all, invest in the people after understanding the people are the ones that are successful. And that's where you find loyal 35-year employees, and they're not leaving. And what I have found unique to your point is that they're not just treated as a commodity.
Oh.
When we think about people, normally we say subject matter expertise, and if one leaves, we can get another. But in my book, I talk in terms of the context of pride. Getting to know the pride of the people, what makes them unique. I call it the intersection of humanity and their intellectual property. And I say intellectual property because when we elevate it to that level, businesses say that's a risk. If we lose our intellectual property, we will lose our competitive advantage. And so, yes, it is a compass point in my book, but I think that companies that have taken the time to understand the unique qualities and gifts that they may have done in the past and somehow bring it forward, if nothing else, to establish trust and respect, those are the organizations that may not have to worry so much about people transitioning out. Now, if they do transition out, kudos, courage, that's a good quality. But organizations that treat people with respect, their past, their culture, and their intellectual property, respecting it at the highest level, they are not going to have those issues. They're going to stay loyal, whether they're in the brick and mortar or in a remote situation. I think that's what CEOs and leaders need to be thinking about.
You make an incredibly good point relative to that. You talk about the compass. People are one aspect on your compass. What else should be on a CEO or leader's compass?
Oh, I'm so excited for this. I mean, I really appreciate that. It's interesting. Before I get to that, it was a journey as being an engineer or STEM professional. We put infographics in the context of like a house. We have a foundation, we have pillars and principles, we have outcomes at the roof of the house. But I realized over time that that doesn't resonate with a CEO or senior leader. I found that a compass, a guide, something that you can pull out of your pocket when you're off track. It doesn't mean you need to follow a 5-step approach or A to Z. Typically, what business consultants will come, and here is my system. You need to follow my system because it's a proven recipe. And yes, we should all define approaches that can work. But the CEO's compass is designed for you to take your own assessment and determine where you're not scoring as high, because then you can almost chart your own course and said, okay, I'm going to apply a little bit of emphasis here, pull over here. And those are the things that are going to get me on track. Because the key is, this is typically for somebody who's already been highly successful. It's simply the environment has changed. Don't forget what you've done well in the past successfully, but pull out this compass. It may be able to get you back on track to true north, which is the main compass point.
True north. And I think that's one of the things that people are struggling with right now. Where is true north?
You read my mind. I am so glad you asked me that question, Lois, because true north is emotional. I call it peace of mind. Peace of mind is personal. You can't define it. But when you see it and when you feel it, you know it. And I'll give you a quick example. Children, nieces and nephews, somebody you can relate to. We spend a lot of time investing in the youth of tomorrow. But when I was having a beverage with my middle son, and he said to me, Mom, you were right. I said, right about what? And in the context of others, I now see people that were my friends and their values are now different than mine. And now I don't know if I want to associate with them. Those key moments when you know that your children or the people that you're leaving a legacy with have formed their own values and making adult decisions, they're on the right track. I don't have to worry about them anymore. That's peace of mind. And a leader knows what those moments are. And if you haven't, maybe you've never seen True North.
If you haven't seen it, you perhaps haven't seen True North. Wow. That's mind opening in a sense. It's a question, I guess. The real question to begin with is, do I have peace of mind? Because if I don't have peace of mind, I don't have True North. And that means that my compass is coming up short.
So true. And I appreciate you reflecting on that, because what I've also seen is that, as we should, as leaders, we have to satisfy stakeholders. We have performance results we must achieve. And that's how we lead our people. We break down barriers to achieve the results. People will be heads down in what they're doing. High five when they get the results that you desire. But it's not sustainable, because you've never brought people's minds to the workforce. You said, what do we need to do to get this result? Smart people will say X, Y, and Z. But if you think in terms of an outcome, which is your purpose, what would it look like not to be number one in the industry, but to be the favorite? Then you've asked a different question, and the people will respond differently. We should do this. We should do this. We should do this. And people start coming and engaging with your creativity. You've respected the human. They start all lining up behind you because you've created a joint vision. And then when your customer says, I could go elsewhere, you may not have the best quality or service, but you got my back. I said, I'll stay with you because of that. That is peace of mind, because you've achieved an outcome.
So why don't people do this? Why are there companies and leaders missing their True North?
I think, and I talk about this a lot in the book. And again, you're getting me to think a lot. And I really, really appreciate these challenging questions. It comes with pause and reflecting. I talk about pause and reflect so often because we are so busy doing all the time, as we're expected to do. We never take the time to think. And it's sometimes during those times where we're disrupted. I left corporate and had to start my own business. Had I just started doing right away and maybe interviewing for another job or passing out business cards and not really reflecting on how I can serve others, I might not be where I am talking to you today. So leaders need to just pause, take a short sabbatical, a week, a day, whatever it is, to just say, what am I here for doing? How can I lead differently? And I will share with you just a real quick story. I wasn't always doing well in my corporate role. And I realized I couldn't continue to lead the same way. So I went to a global meeting where we were expected to share what our plans were for the following year. Everybody else said, here's my to-do list and here's how I'm going to do it. Instead, I said, here's how I'm going to lead differently. Here's what I realized after reflecting about my past leadership that needs to change. And here's how I'm going to lead. And here are the enablers. And then only then did I get to here's what I was going to do. And the crux of it was, the leadership team says that was very nice, but you didn't spend enough time on what you were going to do. And then over lunch, some people quietly said to me, Deb, you were right. We need more leaders like you to pause and reflect and think differently about what are you going to do differently versus what everybody else expects of you. That takes courage. But once you pause and reflect and you see what that true north is, this is why I'm here to lead people. Here's how I'm going to lead the team differently. It becomes quite easy to align everybody. And ultimately, you'll get to true north and peace of mind. I've seen it. I got more examples, but I'll pause.
I love your examples. So I'm ready to listen to another, because I think you're right. It takes courage, and not every organization receives that well. It could be the end of a career for some people in some organizations. And so there was something about that was really important to you, because it spoke to you, but it also opened up perhaps a discussion with other people within the organization that were waiting for somebody to give them permission.
You're so right. I mean, I'll talk about a client, not going to say exactly when, where they brought me in to just solve a technical issue. In my arena in manufacturing, an ISO 9001 certification is a testament that you've achieved a certain level of quality. So technically, they brought me in because I had that capability. What I found was a wonderful company, a seasoned workforce, a lot of great culture, people respecting individuals. But what they had never done was thinking about how do they leave their legacy. They had no job aids, no work instructions, no job descriptions. They trusted each other to have each other's back and just get it done. And that's what they're known for. However, As the company grows and you bring on more people, as conditions change, maybe somebody has to retire, maybe somebody's ill, you lose that intellectual property. You find that you lose your competitive edge. The knowledge goes away. As they grow, they start breaking. What I realized was there was a tremendous amount of risk in that organization. And only by bringing in another set of eyes could I tell the CEO when we sat down and talked, I said, you've got a lot of risk. You've got a great company, but as you grow, and you lose people, if you don't sustain that information, you're going to break. And so that's really where peace of mind was. And that's when you start seeing the head nod. When you see a CEO doing the head nod thing, you know you've hit on something. That's what is going to give them peace of mind and keep them from staying up at night. Only when you have another set of eyes dropping into an organization to solve the business problem, but tell them what they really need to do. That's how we're going to leave an impact. And so we're shoring up those things, making sure we have the documentation in place, cross-training of people, preserving that intellectual property. That's what's going to leave the legacy for this family-owned business into the future generations.
You know, one of the things that brings to mind for me is how with each step of growth, what our needs are changes. The problem is, as a leader, we're so focused on what's happening and it's working, right? It's what you said earlier, it's working. And so you assume it will continue to work. And then you discover there's some things begin to crack a little bit and you see problems. So it's almost like in your planning, you've got to say, okay, we've achieved this. For the next level of growth, how do we need to change? What new things do we need? That's a new discussion. Go ahead. You have a thought there.
No, it so is. And again, I didn't have these well, maybe I had a few aha moments. Just so you know, I often get these aha moments when I jog on the treadmill. And I used to think, I hate it. But if I can get over that 1 mile hump, I get into those modes of flow and thinking, but you know what? I'm going to start changing my mindset. I actually like running because your best thoughts come then. And it's during those times, even in forming my own business. Again, I know that some of your audience are people that are trying to find the courage to say, what's next? What should I do next? And I took the leap to form my own company, not ever having run a business before. I was a technical leader, but figuring it out along the way was wonderful. And I was fortunate the first 2 years to have steady business. And then COVID hit, and I did have business through COVID. And then as things went, it's like, okay, the pipeline is not as full. What served me well in the past, networking, putting my name out there, was not working. And I finally realized I have to change my business model, expand my offers, change my offers, build up that sales and marketing engine. So I didn't do anything wrong in the past, but it's that time and reflection and a few mentors and a couple people that have my back that said, Deb, you might want to think about this because they care about you. And that's critical as you're transitioning. You've made the leap, you're leaving your legacy, but always be ready for new thought. And it's not being fickle and it's not changing and being indecisive. It's being ready to continue to evolve, not change, but evolve what you're doing. So it's happened real time to me.
Right. Well, I appreciate your sharing that because that's what everybody deals with is change, shift. The world is changing. I just read in some research that coming out of COVID, 96% of CEOs have said they are changing their strategy in response to the pandemic. 96% in response to the pandemic. That is a huge shift that companies are going to be experiencing. Something will need to be done differently in the companies.
So there's a broader question associated with that. So yes, that is their reaction to what happened to them in the situation. But what does that mean? What is it that we didn't do well in the past? And so again, back to my geeky technical side, in the quality world, we have to constantly be thinking about risk-based decision-making. And yes, we know in organizations, the CEO, maybe the CFO, they're talking about financial risk and opportunity, but have we really looked at all potential sources of risk to our business? Illness, pandemic, socio-economical. Really good companies have done that. And even if they design a plan to remediate some of those risks so they don't have to all change, Maybe you're already planning for it. Are you really serious about the risk mitigation or not? It's good to have a plan in place, but are you really doing it? That's step 2. So the fact that 96% had to change tells me a little bit that we were so unprepared, and leaders need to spend a little bit more time doing what if. And thinking is probably the better thing they should be doing rather than doing.
Wow, time thinking. That's alone with yourself. And sometimes we do, so we don't have to have that alone time.
I will respond to that. So true. So true to be alone with yourself, because as I mentor others and I have an online course, some of the early things that I teach a rising star is that you got to remove your limiting mindset. You have to spend time with yourself to make sure you believe in yourself and your value and what you want to do moving forward. But then at the same time, only then can you then start working with others and ask the questions, what do we need to do to act differently? So really great point there.
So for you, advice, what would be your top 3 suggestions to a CEO or a leader that is operating in this world right now?
So one thing is have courage, corporate courage to ask for help. Don't do it alone, because where I may not have finished my thought beforehand is that we're smart, we have a lot of pride, but just know, as a single owner, as a business owner, it's lonely as a CEO, have the courage to say, I just need help. And it may be from a capacity perspective or a capability, or I'm not able to see what is needed. First, having the courage to say, I need help, and then trying to figure out who's going to help me. And then even if you find the people that can help you, continue the courage conversation. Do I then say, now I need you to come into my organization and help? Or other aspects of yours. So corporate courage is one of the first things that I talk about. Another thing that I really think strongly about is look at your people. Make sure you are preparing them for the future. Look at everybody as a high performer. Forget about the bell-shaped curve about people in your organization being high performers, mid performers, low performers. Everybody can be a high performer. And the reason why I say that is sometimes we elevate people, sometimes we ignore people. And when we don't carry that vision, that peace of mind, that purpose all the way down through the organization and spend the time making sure we have career development discussions, not the strategy, not the tactical day-to-day, but evolving the people so that they're ready to move up the corporate ladder. You're not going to destabilize the base. Develop the people from the way up. That's number 2.
Number 1 thing millennials are asking for. So that's fascinating. Okay, number 3.
Feedback failure is another topic I love to talk about, because in the context of I talk about 3 types of individuals: people that are early career maturity, people that are mid-career buzzing with some ideas, would like to break out again. And then you got your super high achievers that are hungry to just continue to achieve. Feedback, when somebody asks for feedback saying how I'm doing, or they have that annual performance review, they just get a number. They just say you're doing fine, and people can't respond to a number or I'm just doing fine. But I suggest leaders start the conversation, or people ask for feedback. What can I continue to do? Meaning I'm doing something well, I should continue to do that. What should I start doing that may enrich what I'm already doing? Again, positive, not negative. And what should I change? Because if I change it, it won't detract with what I'm doing. Leaders need to be able to give better feedback, and up and coming need to be able to ask feedback. In the context, it's a positive discussion. It's only going to help the individual and the organization. So learn how to have regular one-on-ones with your people, and feedback can be an opportunity.
What you're suggesting is a fundamental shift in our traditional performance review, in that I think in many ways, people look at the performance review as an HR file drawer filler for just in case they have to lay somebody off, right? And it becomes easier because you have these items you've documented, which may or may not be huge. But it doesn't produce the impact that you need for the organization. It's a file filler, but it's not a behavior changer.
I actually can't top that. What your point is exactly what it is. You should be, as a CEO, taking it from a compliance activity where you can check the box, get out of jail free because you say, here, I did it. But are you really serving the organization? Your organization includes people. Yes, there may be products and service and technology that engages with your consumers, but at the end of the day, unless you've completely automated everything, it is your people's interactions with other people, your customers, and technology. And unless you've equipped them with all the skills and they see their alignment to the purpose, you're not going to get peace of mind.
You have such a wisdom. It's a gentle wisdom that you bring. And coming out of your engineering background, STEM background, I find it so endearing because I feel like that is what people are asking for right now in many ways. And so it's great to hear what you're talking about. I want to ask you one more question about what are the signs that you're losing your emerging leaders within an organization? What should a company be looking for?
There's a couple components to that about losing your emerging leaders. These are people that just want to move up. They are looking for purpose. They are looking for guidance because they want to serve and deliver and learn and do purposeful work. But I talk about three kinds of emerging leaders that you may not recognize and maybe write them off. I talk about it in terms of kind of a fire analogy where you've got your spark. That person that's early in their career, they say, I just want to, I don't know, I reflect on somebody, I want to protect the food. They need to be doing this in order to keep the food and supply chain safe. And, we might admonish them because, oh, you shouldn't have said it that way. You offended that leader, and you smother that emerging leader because you haven't groomed them in the way to take their passion and enthusiasm about a topic that they really care about because they want to make a big impact. And unless you have those performance review conversations to help guide them on ways and language that would resonate with the people they're trying to impact, you're going to lose that emerging leader. The second emerging leader is the one that's been a steady Eddie. Maybe we may have worked for you for 10 or 15 years, dependable subject matter expert. And then one day they come into your office and they start scribbling some things on your whiteboard and they have these crazy new ideas, but they're having a hard time articulating it because they're maybe, a technical expert, but they've got these new crazy ideas, an intrapreneur. And you just find them after a while, they can't articulate their message. You write them off. You kind of roll your eyes because, it's just a lot of gibberish. And again, they may go quiet because you didn't help guide them in developing an idea that starts like a far out idea. But that's what CEOs do. They have these crazy ideas, these visionaries. But if you don't help guide them and evolve it, you smother them again. Okay. And then the last one is, I call it the last one was the slow burn. The other one's the ignite. That person we talked about, the high achiever that wants that feedback to be able to say, what else can I do? How else can I achieve? They're always looking for the next step. And to my point before, if we don't give them the feedback, well, here's what you could do next. Here's what you can further develop in your essential skills. Here's some work you could do in another department to expand your breadth of understanding of the business. If you're not ready to have those conversations, they too are going to lose steam and they're going to be talking to your competition and leave you. So recognize those three types of emerging leaders. They show up in crazy ways where you need to invest a little time in developing the maturity of who they are, their craft, and their messaging.
Wow, I appreciate that perspective so much. Deb, we're running out of time and I've enjoyed this so much. What have we missed? What do we need to talk about that is so important that you're passionate about that people need to hear?
Well, Lois, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to connect with your audience. It means a lot to me to be able to just have a conversation and talk about kind of pivotal to the Drop-In CEO brand is HumanCentric Leadership. This entire book does not tell you in the CEO's compass, your guide to get back on track. It does not tell you what to do. It actually asks you more questions so that you can think and get back on track. But otherwise, it is a good guide to make suggestions about if you're off on your people development, if you haven't really clearly articulated a purpose. those are just 2 of the 8 compass points. This book can get you back on track. So I would love to just have a conversation with people on my website, dropinceo.com. There's a contact me page. It's free just to have a 15, 30-minute conversation, but also connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend a lot of time, Deborah A. Coviello. And let's just, have a conversation, get on the wait list. You'll be privy to a lot more information and share my thoughts with you. And I'd love to just have a conversation, not only just with a CEO, senior business leader, but anybody coming up in their career. Let's just have a conversation about the thoughts and see how we can leave an impact.
I appreciate that so much. And for those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast today, we'll have information about how to connect with Deb in the show notes. So you can feel free to contact her. If you should have any problems, let us know. We're glad to make sure that you get connected. So Deb, thank you so much for being with us today on Building My Legacy podcast.
And it was my pleasure, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you so much.
And for those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast today, thank you. And please remember to visit our website at Build Tomorrow with the number 2. And we look forward to talking with you again very soon. Thanks.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstagard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstagard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.